Hello everyone, Saturn here, giving a breakdown of different interest groups in Wiki 3. In this video, we're going to focus on landowners, so let's get into it. Landowner interest groups always have the same icon. It's a little windmill and it's purple, but it could be named differently. So depending on your nation, for this example, it's Russia, is the gentry assembly. So you click on here, and every interest group, you can either suppress or bolster them. You can't suppress them if they're part of the government. And then you also have the bolster button, and all these use is 200 authority, which is quite a bit. And here you can see we could bolster the interest group attraction, meaning more people will join it, plus 40%. And this is all depending on your free speech laws. So if we go here, you can see outlawed dissent will give you a plus 50%, even more. Censorship is giving us the plus 40%. Right of assembly will give you plus 30% or minus 30% suppression. And then protected speech is one that will not allow you to do any bolstering or suppressing of any of your interest groups. The first thing to worry about your interest groups is their clout. It shows you how much political strength they have, and this gives you a nice little breakdown. You can see that we're at 46%, and that's usually the case for landowner interest groups for any new nation that you're starting out with. But when you hover over, you can actually see a nice breakdown, and a lot of it comes down to the wealth of the people who are in that interest group. Then there's a lot of bonuses. You can see you can get that from you're the leader of the interest group, from different marshals or generals, as well as admirals, and then different laws will also give bonuses. So this is the one area that you're going to want to lower, especially for landowners. Another thing to note about clout is that when an interest group is above 20%, they're considered powerful. And what that means is that their interest group traits have a plus 100% effectiveness, which is actually really good in some situations, or bad if you have them unhappy. For example, here you see noble privileges. If they're unhappy, you're going to lose a lot on taxes for agriculture, ranching, and plantations. However, if you're making them happy, you have family ties, you'll get usually a plus 10% influence. But since our clout is high enough, it's a plus 20%. And then our last one here, we also get a plus 20% aristocrats investment pool, which is very good, but only, again, you got to be careful with the laws that you have. Our economic system, traditionalism, does not help with the investment pool. We would want to be towards agrarianism. So who are we trying to make happy? You can click the population tab. You can see by profession what makes up this interest group, and is really a lot of it is aristocrats. So 114,000 of them are part of the gentry assembly. And if we go over here, we can see their standard of living as well as their average yearly income. And here's 22 pounds, which is rather high. So that's the the number one group as part of our interest group, and they're being paid quite a bit compared to the rest. We can see the next group is only 31,000 and only being paid 11 pounds on average. Officers could probably get paid a little bit more, 14, but there's a lot less of them. There's only about 2,000. The same thing for farmers, but farmers are being paid even less. So remember, the reason why we care about how much those groups are being paid and how many of those professions are in there is because of the wealth here. You can see, from wealth. So if the aristocrats are the biggest part of this party and they're being paid the most, that's what's really making the most impact on this interest group. The next question is, how do you make the interest group happy? Or maybe you're not going to want them to be happy, but you're going to want them to lose some power. We could go through their ideologies. You can see the ones that they endorse here are the ones that they would be happy with, and the opposing are the ones that they wouldn't. The first one is legal guardianship, which is okay to keep around for quite a long time. Later on, you can get women in the workplace or women's suffrage, but legal guardianship is okay to keep. The next one they endorse is state religion, which is really a bad one. It does increase your religious interest group's political strength, which isn't necessarily the best. But what's really bad here is it causes discrimination. If they're not part of your accepted religion, you're different pops, and this will cause a lot of radicals. Paternalistic is the next ideology group, and there's a lot of laws here to cover. Monarchy is usually okay to keep. However, it does give a plus 25% political strength to the landowners. So if you are looking to reduce it and you can't find any other laws, this is one maybe you can try to go towards a theocracy, or even a parliamentary republic or presidential republic, and they'll lose that power there. And then you can always switch back once you get this interest group under control. The next is distribution of power. Oligarchy, you can see here the reason why they endorse it is because political strength goes to the aristocrats, and we saw that in our population, that a majority of this interest group are aristocrats. So this is one, again, if you're trying to weaken definitely this interest group, then you want to stay away from oligarchy and land voting. And so it's kind of like a reversal, and you want to go towards some of these laws that they don't like. So you can see here in land voting as well, or landing voting, it's a plus 50% political strength for aristocrats as well. The next is bureaucracy. This one I think is one that you can definitely change pretty easily. Here they also get a plus 25% landowner political strength. So this is one I would look for right away to try to go towards maybe elected bureaucrats. Yeah, I'll make them upset, or you can even go towards appointed bureaucrats, whichever one you're able to get. Lowering their strength here by 25% is pretty good, and usually it's a little bit easier to pass. Policing is another one that's usually easy to pass as well. I would not sit on local police force if you're trying to reduce these guys. For sure you can go to either dedicated police or even no police, whatever you got to do, but you can usually get this one passed as well and kind of weaken them. The next, agrarianism is kind of okay to start with, so actually having this is not a bad economic system. They start out with traditionalism, or a lot of them do, a lot of the nations, and I would definitely get away from that. You can check out my other videos, but out of the economic systems, that's the worst. So getting out of that is definitely recommended. They oppose free trade. They like isolationism, which could be good depending on your situation. Mercantilism is probably the best way to go by default, especially if you're a new player. And again, none of these impact their political strength in any way. The next ideology group is Stratocratic. If I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, put it down in the comments below. I know you guys like to correct me. So the first one is army models and peasant levies is something you want to get rid of. The plus 25% to the political strength of the landowners is not something you want to keep around for sure. And going to the other laws are not that hard. As long as you get the military interest group into the government, it should be easily enough passed. Serfdom is another one that you definitely want to get rid of. They strongly endorse this, plus 50%. This is a huge one. It's also disallowed by a lot of the better laws for your economic system. So you definitely want to get away from this law as soon as you can. And this is usually one of the reasons why you want the landowners out. So this may be one of the last ones that you can kind of change out. Stance of taxation, so consumption-based taxation and land-based are horrible. These are ones that you don't want sticking around. You really, anything after this is even better. So per capita and proportional, all these are going to make you more money. So again, you're going to probably make them not happy. You can leave it on land-based for a while, maybe until you get them out if you don't want to make them super unhappy. But again, I wouldn't be sitting on this. And welfare is something I wouldn't even play around with as a new player. If you're not a new player, again, staying on no Social Security for a while is okay until you have heaps of money to be able to put towards it. The last ideology group is patriarchal, and you can see here it's rights of women, so legal guardianship like we talked about before, and that's okay to keep around in the early game. And then they also endorse censorship, which is pretty much the go-to that I would say for a free speech. They also strongly endorse outlaw dissent, but that's something you're not going to be able to do right away. You need political agitation, and that's a much longer tech to be able to get. So I think, keeping censorship around here is still useful, and remember, you can use that against them as well once they get out of the government. You also got to keep an eye on the leaders of the interest groups. They could have an impact depending on their traits. You can see here there's a plus 10 popularity. That means more people are going to join this interest group, which we really don't want. Also, they do have their own ideologies. And depending on this, if they don't align with the interest group, they can actually change it or provide other laws that they would endorse. So this is kind of the flavor in the game, which is kind of cool. So it's not always the same. In our example, if you're trying to get rid of the landowners, the best way to look at it is look at their population and see, okay, that aristocrats again and clergymen are the majority of this interest group. So what we want to do is not build buildings that will employ these type of professions. So for example, farms give plus 100 aristocrats and plus 300 clergymen per level. So we don't want farms. We also don't want ranches, and we also don't want plantations. So you really don't want rural agriculture. You want to start building more industry buildings, maybe even just logging camps, because here you can see you're getting laborers, capitalists, and machinists, and they're more likely to join the other interest groups. So once you start getting your population switching into other interest groups, you also want to change out the laws if you can that are giving them extra bonuses. So for example, like monarchy would be a good one to change up. Bureaucrats, if you can. That's usually an easier one to do. Peasant levies is also an easier one to do. So again, that's like 50%. And the monarchy is another 25%, so it's 75%. And you can see all the totals here as well when you hover over again and look at the clout of your given interest group. You can see that there's the leader here is meticulous, and there's nothing we could really do about that. But we do have a field marshal, so we do have some generals that are giving a huge bonuses here. So you can actually go to your military and check it out and see which interest groups that they're under. And you know, if it's really that important to you, you can actually go in and you can see, you know, they're part of the armed forces. This one's part of the landowners. So what you can do is you could actually retire them out if that's okay for your government. That's going to make them not happy, but is also going to reduce the power that they have. And you can keep, again, looking through here and looking through their clout, figuring out what else you can reduce. So again, monarchy, like we talked about, hereditary bureaucrats, peasant levies, and serfdom. Lastly, the one law that really makes a huge impact, and this is regardless of your interest group, really the autocracy here or oligarchy, you can see that there's still big bonuses to the aristocrats, plus 50%. Land voting here now goes from a percentage to just plus 50. So it is lowered, but the aristocrats are still getting a decent amount of power. Wealth voting, you'll see an impact here, but again, the aristocrats are going to be making pretty good wealth, so the impact is going to be there, but not maybe quite enough for what you need. Census suffrage is when it really changes. Here now, it's the plus 30 political strength to literate pops, so now this will definitely go across your country as long as you've been educating them. If you like this type of content, or you'd like me to break down some of the other interest groups, put it down in the comments below. Hit that like, subscribe, notification button. It's free, and as always,
for the swarm.